Okay, this is Genesis chapter 4, verse 24. And this is going to be the foundation for the number system to compare with the Mayan world system, and then of course the precessional clock, the precession of the equinoxes. So we're going to have three sources that are going to come together with some paper thin closeness. All right, so here's how we got to understand this. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. Now, if you haven't watched the series that I've done, which is about Nod and Eve and Cain, watch that. And then if you have not watched, what you should watch first is the arrival of the locust. Definitely watch that, and you're going to be able to understand what all this means. If you don't watch that, I'm telling you, you're not going to understand what this means. And it's going to connect over here with why we have Cain being driven from the face of the earth, and that he shall be considered a fugitive and a vagabond, and that people are going to want to slay and hurt him. Now we're going to compare that with Samson being the same thing, a vagabond, a wanderer, and that people are going to want to hurt him. All right, and we're going to make the connection to the same genealogy if you would begin to look a little closer at what I'm revealing about the land of Nod and stop being so tradition blinded and begin to understand that this connects and creates the totalic whole, not just one small portion that you choose to hold on to. You know, this is connecting the whole story, my friends, and it's worth beginning to think about. Now, so we see here, we've got Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70-fold. Now, the first question I have to ask you, and the answer is in my series, The Arrival of the Locust, but I got to ask you this. Why is Cain going to be avenged? I thought Abel was the one that was murdered. Why is Cain going to be avenged after all this time right here? 70 and sevenfold. Think about it. Think about that very closely. And at the same time, let's not forget what we saw within the book of Enoch. We saw this same rendition of this binding. Just in this instance, we're given this generations, which makes a lot of sense because in the book of Enoch, we have a lot of things dealing with time and seasons and signs. So it makes sense that we're getting a little bit more information here in this situation. So we see a binding takes place, 70 generations. Now we see an origin of an original vengeance, okay, which is not necessarily in question of a binding on a cyclic basis of a time. On the small scale, we're talking on a large scale. And what we're talking about is this vengeance, this ultimate judgment. In other words, this great day. Now let me remind you that it's Babylon the Great, that great star, the great mountain, the great dragon. He was given a mouth speaking great things. So now you have to equate this judgment, or this great judgment, this physical judgment of all this death, fire, hell, brimstone, and damnation, wrath, and vengeance. You'll begin to understand who this great God is with all of this vengeance and wrath. Now remember, Christ said he loved the sinners, but he hates the sin. So why is anybody come and destroy supposedly just children that have been deceived by the deceiver? Because Christ would even leave 99 of his sheep to go gather that one lost sheep that would return. So I'm telling you right now that wrath, vengeance, and anger is not the way of our Lord, not the way of the true Lord of Jesus Christ, the most merciful, the most patient, and the most perfect representation of the Father in heaven. Even the Father in heaven himself is that physical representation of Jesus Christ to the worlds of time and space. Think about this. So here is our connection that we're going to make the math off of. I'll be back.